Hello. I'd like to welcome everyone, um, both in the Del Mar Center Hall, on Zoom, and later on YouTube. I'm going to first give a few safety things that we start with. If anyone is unfamiliar with this area and you need to use the bathrooms, they are not in this building. They are across the sidewalk to the little white building over there. If you need to leave, there's signs over the doors that say exit. That's your friend. Um, may we never need this, but there is an AED back here. Okay. Also, this is a convenient time to turn off any ringers on your phone. I'm going to give you a brief history of the Sea Ranch Forum. It was founded in 1973 as an independent group of sea ranchers to organize meetings of public interest, and it has never been an official committee of the Sea Ranch Association, making it independent of the association and its board of directors. My name is Linda McCabe, and I am currently the chair of the Sea Ranch Forum. And I had not intended on organizing a forum that would have such a politically overt political theme. But these are not normal times. In discussions with people after the November election, I heard many people express they were overwhelmed with feelings of anxiety, depression, and a sense of hopelessness for our future. And I felt there was a need for this kind of meeting in our community. And I personally have felt overwhelmed at times with my own anxiety and depression, and I'm working on a daily basis to maintain my own mental balance. And planning for this forum has been therapeutic for me, and I hope that it will have a similar beneficial effect for those in attendance or watching this later. And this meeting will be a little different from other forums held in the past, as this will not be a formal presentation, but instead more of a guided conversation. So we will start by having 3 topics touched on by our speakers, and then we will open up the floor to discussion by those in the room and online. And there's a podium there. There's also a handheld microphone, which we can turn on and send it through the audience. Please note that this meeting is recorded and will be available on YouTube later. So keep this in mind as you share your thoughts with people here. If there's anything of a sensitive, personal nature, perhaps you might want to mention that to others once the cameras are turned off. So the first topic is self-help, mitigating stress and practicing self-care by moderating exposure to news and social media and not using alcohol and drugs as coping mechanisms. The second is focusing your energies on supporting our local community where your efforts can actually make a difference. And third is practicing acts of resistance to attempts to undermine our constitutional rights. I also wanted to stress this is not really the place to perform a post-mortem on the last election and how any political party should have conducted their campaigns differently. This meeting is specifically meant to focus on how people can care for themselves in what is expected to be a turbulent next few years. And if you are a supporter of the incoming administration and do not understand why anyone would be feeling anxiety and depression about the future, it might be good for you to sit back with an open heart and open mind to understand what your friends, neighbors, relatives, coworkers are feeling. So our first speaker is Molly Behrens. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist who relocated to Wallala just over a year ago from Vacaville, where she had a private practice. She has one here working out of an office in her home, and she also works for our CMS a few days a month. This is a second career for her after teaching elementary school for 20 years. She originally went back for her master's in order to be a school counselor and discovered she preferred working in private practice because it gave her more freedom and was less stressful. She's been doing therapy since 2018, specializing in anxiety, and depression. She has worked with District Attorney's Office to serve victims of crime, which is some of her most challenging work to date, and also works with couples and families. Okay, start.
Thank you, Linda.
Make sure the microphone is close to you so we
So, to echo some of what Linda said, these are unusual times. They're hard times. If you're feeling, oops, can you hear me okay? Okay. If you're feeling anxious and depressed, that's normal. Symptoms like irritability, poor sleep, poor appetite, lack of interest in people and things that you normally take interest in, it's called anhedonia. Those are some symptoms of depression. Anxiety can include racing thoughts, racing heart, sweating not brought on by heat, disruptions with your digestion, that kind of thing. Therapists don't have a corner on the market, of course, on how to be human. And I can only talk to you, self-care is personal. I can talk to you about what works for me and what works for a lot of my clients. The first few are somewhat obvious. Working out, I always kind of get with some of my clients that are more sedentary, their eyes will glaze over and their jaw will drop a little bit. I've lost them. They don't want to work out. So, that's not a great phrase. Maybe dedicated body time, but some time for your body every single day, whether it's stretching for a half an hour, a brisk walk, going for a swim, whatever your thing is, taking care of your body every day does wonders for your well-being. We're probably drawn to this area for much of the same reasons, and that's the natural beauty here. Getting out in nature and connecting with it is a great way to de-stress. So taking advantage of what we have. Also, moderating your diet of news and social media. We've heard a lot of that probably lately. We're not set up to be bombarded with bad news all the time. So just really kind of watching your intake, small doses of that helps. Social media, pay attention to your body. Is it working for you? Are you anxious or angry when you're scrolling? And if so, change it up. Block people, do what you have to do to make it work for you. I'm one of those odd people who just doesn't do it all together. I thought it was great when I first started out and found that, I was spending too much time thinking about what other people were thinking, and I didn't like that. So the bottom line, make sure it's working for you. Alcohol, marijuana, fill in the blank, know your limits. Again, pay attention to your body. Is it working for you? Is it enhancing your life or is it taking away? I enjoy a glass of local wine, and it's fantastic. It enhances my life, but I'm finding more and more that I don't need it, and that also enhances my life when I don't have wine. So, playing around with that, make sure paying attention to your body again. Next, being present. Being present can take a lot of forms, and it's something I'm trying to remind myself to do more and more during the day. What it does is give your mind a break. We're constantly thinking of the past, how somebody hurt us, what we did wrong, what we regret, or we're being anxious about the future more and more. You can give your conscious mind a break by being present. It can really, really help. And I start my day being present. I started treating myself to a chocolate every morning. That's why, I'm forgetting out of bed these days. So you deserve something to get, So I have a really good chocolate with my coffee and I savor it, and it's fantastic. That's how I start my day. Enjoy the texture of your cat's fur. Get lost in a song, but be present. Check out for a little bit. Utilize and seek humor wherever you can. Colbert, Kimmel, stand-up comedy, funny cat videos, whatever. Explore your silly side. Humor really helps. Also, exploring spirituality or finding refuge in your faith. There's less of us going to church these days, but whatever. What does it look like for you? Don't disregard relationships of people that you care about because they have opposing views. There might be a few that you need to disregard, but I think right now of my best friend since I was 19, and we'll never see eye to eye when it comes to politics. And it's hard for me to understand, but at the same time, we realize we can't talk about it for the sake of our friendship. I know she's a good person. She's a great mom. She's a champion of animals. Oh, I'm getting a little teary. She, she's a great person. She's a loyal friend of mine. I'm not going to lose her because of politics. Get your feelings out. Talk, write, create, sing, go to therapy if you feel the need. But getting your feelings out, very healthy. Find hope. Look for the helpers, is what I think that was Mr. Rogers' mother said that one. They're out there. Looking for hope. Takes a little bit more effort these days, but it's out there. A friend and neighbor of mine down the street shared a great quote. I think it was Winston Churchill, and I'm probably not saying this verbatim, but he said, Americans will always do the right thing, but only after they've exhausted all other possibilities. And I like that. It's humorous. It offers a little bit of hope. Maybe there's a silver lining in all of this. Maybe democracy will change for the better. And finally, read. Distract yourself with some good inspirational literature. Some book titles I would recommend right now about any book by Jimmy Carter. There's a wonderful book called Great Peacemakers from Around the World. It's been around a little while. Short biographies of some obvious people like Gandhi or Jane Goodall. And then there's some, people you wouldn't have thought of, like Pippi Longstocking. I can't remember her actual name, but she's, anyway, pick up the book and you'll find out about her. I'm reading a couple right now. Patriot by Alexei Navalny. It's an autobiography. He's the one who was trying to run against Putin and recently died in prison. And Trippy, which is about the promise and perils of psychedelic drugs, which is big in our field right now. So it's an interesting book, no matter what your thoughts are on that. But anyway, you're probably here today to change the way you feel, looking for connection, understanding, strength, wanting to mobilize. I hope that you find that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. I wanted to, before I introduce Paula, there's a traditional serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That has now been updated for the 21st century to grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change directions when I see them coming, and the wisdom to not try to smack some sense into them when I can't avoid them. Good, I'm glad I got some laughs from that. The second topic is using your energies for social change that will actually have an impact, and that is on the local level. And to cover that topic, I know of a couple people who are really connected in our local area, and one of them is Paula Smith. And Paula, the introduction that you wrote for me to read is in first person, and I think it actually is just better for you to read it yourself as part of your talk.
Because I'm so shy.
Yeah.
I was 14 years old when I first worked for a candidate. It was Senator Eugene McCarthy who was running for president. He didn't win. At age 18, I then worked for Senator McGovern, who also ran for president. He didn't win either. But I didn't give up working for change. I just put my efforts into local issues. When we lived in El Dorado Hills, I worked on 2 tax measures to build a library. They both passed with over 70%. We moved to Sea Ranch permanently in 2014 after a long wait from buying our lot in 1999 to finishing building our house in 2011. My husband, Steve, joined the volunteer fire department shortly thereafter. In November of 2018, I worked on Measure V, which guaranteed funding for the North Sonoma Coast Fire Protection District, which consolidated the volunteer fire departments of Sea Ranch and the Annapolis Fire Brigade. It passed by 95.8%. I've never had such a good victory, and that was because of the people here who got together and got it done. In November of 22, I worked on Measure O in Mendocino to guarantee funding for libraries. It passed by 60.82%, and it only needed 50 plus 1. And it was a library, and those are essential. In November of 22, I also worked on Measure E, a bond for the Horicon School District. It passed by 75.6%. In March of 24, I worked on the Sonoma County Measure H, county-wide. It passed by 61.7%, but in our district, it passed by 80.99%. These are all examples of what you do. You don't do this by yourself. It's an iceberg. You get out there and you get everybody to help you, and everybody did. And I didn't despair after working for good men who lost. I found a path to affect change locally. You can too. Don't give up. And I have a few organizations. How do I'm not very tech.
I have to make you a co.
Well, if I'm running
No.
things, I hope you're comfy.
And now you should be able to share your screen.
Go back. Thank you. I'm going to talk to you about a few things that need more help. Oh, share. Sorry about that. Number one, as you can tell, I like libraries. They're essential. And the Friends of the Coast Community Library could use your help. Charles Higgins is the president, and they could use a website and a Facebook page just for the Friends site, so they can tell you when things are happening. That particular library in Point Arena is rather odd because it's owned by the Friends themselves, so they have to pay for all the upkeep. So there's a site called Declutter. You notice it's spelled oddly. In fact, if you want to clean out your house, because sometimes that helps people feel better, you go there and it takes CDs and DVDs and you get a check. Plus, they send you a mailing system, so you don't have to worry about mailing it. Or you could help the Guala Community Center. Kevin's right here. He'll be glad to talk to you. We're trying to get it rebuilt. We're doing everything we can to raise money. We've applied for grants, but there was a change in Washington. So we'll see what happens.
Kevin, wave your hands for people here in the audience in case they want to talk to you later.
Yeah. Project Santa, which gives gifts and food to the underprivileged. Joyce Perkins, you got her number up there. She'll be glad to have you help. They need some Spanish speakers starting in September so they can contact the recipients and identify their need. Or you could just start wrapping presents in November. Gualala Arts. Oh. I hate computers. And Guala Arts, he needs everything. Mailing, setting up for events, gardening, you name it. The Red Coast Conservancy could use your help. If you haven't been there, you should go. It's beautiful. They're caring for the land. Sometimes you feel good just working and getting it out. There's a Rudyard Kipling poem. I know he's not terribly PC anymore, but it's about working with a hoe in the garden and getting your anger out. Also, they've restored the cemetery there. It's absolutely gorgeous. Or you could help at KGUA. Peggy Berryhill always needs help, and she keeps us informed. Or you could help at RCMS. They're going to have a fundraiser, their black and white dinner, Wednesday, March 19th. Patty Belchelder could use some help with the wine donations. No $2 chuck, just the good stuff. Robin Hathaway's looking for sponsorships. And the Redwood Coast Recreation Center, I don't know if you've ever gone there. It's over on Ocean Ridge Park. And it's a lovely site. They need help clearing and working the land. They have a disc golf tournament. I don't know if you've ever played it. It's golf, but with frisbees. And they have a lot of fun doing that. So they could all use your help. I'm also going to talk about something that's predominantly Sea Ranch specific, and that is our fire department, the Educational Revenue Augmentation Fund, ERAF. It's a mouthful, but what it basically happens, as it tells you here, it was well intended. It was shifting revenue after Prop 13 from the school to, so the schools had some, and whoever else needed money. And they, as you can see, it was used to reduce the state's obligation. And they originally expected it wouldn't be more than 20% anywhere. I'm sharing that. Oh,
Still sharing.
okay. I'm sorry, I need help again. This is that, yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, I can tell you about it. We'll do it again. Ah, thank you.
There. You start with,
Will it keep on going? When I go to the next one? Yeah, okay. Okay. And there we are. Thank you. Thank you. So this money was supposed to help without making it too hard to survive as a district. Okay. Okay. What, I can wing it. I mostly want to get the table up. Okay. Okay. So anyway, the money was supposed to be helpful for the world, for the communities, but what happened here at Sea Ranch was, as you can see, we give 45.86% of our tax money to the rest of Sonoma County. Nobody else gives that much. And it's definitely over their original 20%. The next highest person is 18%. It's the highest in amount in Sonoma County. And the average for the others is only 5.08. So the district went to court trying to have the shift recalculated. They lost the suit and they lost the appeal. So let me show you where we stand. Okay. As you can see, we're at 45 and everybody else is below 10 except for Timber Cove. And some people get money handed back to them because they don't have enough to get by. So if they had the money, what would they spend it on? Well, they'd get more professional firefighters. They're right now doing an extension at the station to build a place for them to live. They'd pay off their existing equipment. They'd replace 20-year-old equipment. Before we became a district, we used to get the leftovers from the county, and it's timing out. We need new ones, just like your car. and you'd get more firefighting equipment. So how can you help? You can write the supervisors and ask them why we pay more. Our supervisor is Linda Hopkins, and she does a great job for us, but she's only one vote, and she's
She's-
consistently outvoted.
She's also the incoming chair of the Board of Supervisors.
So maybe she'll have more oomph. So let's try writing to these people or emailing these people. Or try at the state level. There's a possibility that it may change. Part of that problem I'm sure you saw in the news where LA County fire people had gotten cut back was more than likely due to the ERAF issue. So we all know what happens when the fires happen. And we all know that we need more money. So here's a way for you to take action. Here's a way for you to end the problem by working it politically. And we can do it. Those numbers I read you on the huge support we've had for our fire district over the years. In 95 and 75, you did that. All the people here. And our board has tried hard for a long time. But what I like is you go to their website, they say, the district prefers to use its energy and funds on fire department operations and working with CAL FIRE instead of spending money on litigation. They've got work to do. They don't want to spend their money on lawyers. But you could give them a hand. It's easy. Next time you're annoyed and you're on the news and you go, ugh, just write an email going, where's my money? I need it here. You saw what happened to LA. Our district, there's 10 miles of working hydrants. It's here in Sea Ranch. The rest of the district goes all the way back to Healdsburg. It's 176 square miles. There's no hydrants up there. We need it. And there's tanks up there, and people are prepared to fight. We've had a lot of good people working on that. And Chris Atchison got people in up and down the roads to put signs out where they have water so the firemen can go in. But if it's a big fire, the water's exhausted. We've seen what happens. So I need your help because the firemen need your help. And thanks for listening. You can call me or talk to me afterwards. I'll be glad to have you talk to people to try to get it's our money. And we shouldn't be paying that much. Maybe we could pay 10, who knows, but not 45. Anyway, thanks. And I'm sorry I'm not good with computers.
Thank you. So I'm going to start to introduce Lauren Mendelsohn, and hopefully she's hearing me and can add her sound and
I'm
there we
here.
go.
Can you hear?
Hi. Yeah, hi. So let me introduce you. Thank you. And let me spotlight you also. Spotlight. And you should stop sharing your screen, Paula. There we go. Hi, good. So
Hi.
Lauren, this is the third topic, which is performing acts of resistance to attempts to undermine our constitutional rights. And quickly, I want to mention there are some cards that are red that are in the back table. They are from the American Civil Liberties Union, and they are regards to your rights in case you were pulled over by law enforcement or immigration. And it's in English and in Spanish. And these were created by the American Civil Liberties Union and provided here by the Sea Ranch Foundation. So Lauren had earned a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from the University of Maryland and her JD from University of California, Irvine School of Law. She's a junior partner at the law offices of Omar Figueroa in Sebastopol and has been involved in drug policy reform as well as other social efforts. Her work focuses on cannabis, permitting and licensing, regulatory compliance, business transactions, intellectual property, government, and post-conviction relief. She also volunteers as a chapter leader for the Sonoma County chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union of Northern California and is a member of the Americans for Safe Access California Advisory Committee. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for having me. First, I want to know, can you all read what my shirt says, or is it backwards? Because sometimes Zoom flips things around.
It looks good.
Okay, great. So thank you for inviting me here today. I am, I'm feeling somewhat frustrated, as I think some other folks, many of us probably are, about the state of affairs, but I also am feeling hopeful by how many people I see, in attendance today. And so I am going to be speaking on behalf of the ACLU. There is a chapter in Sonoma County. It's open to people in Mendocino as well. I don't believe there is one, in Mendocino, so it is open to anyone in the area who's interested in attending. We do meet on Zoom about once a month, and so I will, send information after this about how you can get connected with our chapter if that is something that interests you. But I'd just like to, I have something written about what the ACLU is doing to kind of to resist moving forward, and there's a few different areas that the ACLU is working on in particular as we move into this new administration, in terms of, how is the organization protecting civil liberties and what can you do to get involved. And so I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about what the ACLU is doing in California and more broadly as we move into the next administration. So first, with regards to immigration. So, President-elect Trump's immigration plans, they are far crueler, more extreme, and fundamentally damaging to core rights and freedoms than, any other president we have in living memory. From mass raids and deportations to attacks on asylum and birthright citizenship, Trump's policies will not address border management or create a functioning modern immigration system. These policies would harm all of us by tearing apart immigrant families, communities, and the fabric of American society. At the state and local level, the ACLU is pushing elected officials to begin coordinating to protect their communities from Trump's attempts to ravage them. This includes opting out of Trump's deportation machine by minimizing local entanglements with abusive and discriminatory immigration enforcement programs. This includes refusing to contract with immigration and customs enforcement officials to provide detention space necessary for Trump's deportation machine, and ensuring that local police do not provide any support to ICE for its raids and other arrests. And additionally, developing protocols to prepare and support communities impacted by mass raids. These deportation raids will devastate our communities when people disappear from their neighborhoods overnight. Children will be left without parents, families will lose their breadwinners, and fear will ripple through our schools, places of worship, and workplaces. We are urging state and local governments to prepare. Public and private leaders must convene now to create a protocol for how to respond to these raids, including setting up a hotline, providing pro bono legal assistance, preparing educators and faith leaders to provide support, and surging resources to families left behind. Also, protecting people who are vulnerable to deportation, including issuing pardons to immigrants for state criminal convictions that make them deportable, and passing legislation to allow people to obtain a driver's license without regard to citizenship. So those are some things the ACLU is doing with regards to immigration. Another area of focus moving forward is going to be free speech, data privacy, and executive power abuses. So President-elect Trump has made clear that his administration intends to dismantle the already insufficient guardrails that prevent the president from abusing the executive branch's power. Trump and his allies have made clear their desire to use the power of the presidency to criminalize dissent and stifle free speech, expand government surveillance, and target political opponents. Notably, he's threatened to deploy the National Guard or the U.S. military against people for exercising their First Amendment right to peacefully protest. In the second Trump administration, state and local leaders who value civil liberties must take a lead role in resisting abuses of federal executive power. We're urging them to take action, including limiting cooperation between local and federal law enforcement, such as joint terrorism task forces and fusion centers that enable federal authorities to intervene in protests and mobilize local resources in abusive surveillance and investigations. restricting data sharing with federal agencies and departments, which would reduce the pool of data available to federal law enforcement to carry out. This includes championing state and local laws to increase community control over policing, restricting reverse warrants, and ending purchases of personal information from data brokers. Adopting clear rules governing how police may respond to peaceful protests in order to prevent the chilling of First Amendment protected activity. This includes guidance on demilitarizing their policing of demonstrations, creating greater transparency of policing at protests, and minimizing intrusive surveillance of protests. Additionally, keeping the military out of domestic law enforcement. Trump has threatened to turn the powers of our government against the enemy within, including using federal troops to suppress protest or aid in mass deportation. Our nation's foundational principles separate the military from domestic law enforcement, and these kinds of Trump actions would be abuses of power. We are urging state governors and legislatures to make clear that their state National Guard units will not voluntarily participate in Trump's plans. Our state leaders can refuse to let National Guard troops under their command suppress peaceful protest or turbocharge immigration raids and detention. State governments can also decline to assist federal troops and federal law enforcement in the commission of rights violations in certain circumstances. With regards to reproductive rights, which is something that's, personally as a woman, I'm very passionate about protecting reproductive rights. During this first administration, President-elect Trump nominated 3 of the Supreme Court justices who voted to overturn Roe versus Wade, ending nearly half a century of federal protections for abortion. In his second administration, Trump could try to go even further. While Trump himself has waffled on the issue, his allies have proposed extreme agendas that includes misusing the 19th century Comstock Act as a backdoor way to ban abortion nationwide, pushing the FDA to revoke approval of the abortion medication mifepristone, and disseminating access to contraception. States and localities must act as a critical bulwark in the face of a Trump administration that is hostile to reproductive rights. The ACLU is working to ensure they take action, including passing shield law protections to protect people who provide, seek, and help others obtain abortion care in their states from civil or criminal repercussions from other states' laws. Funding abortion, contraception, and abortion support services through grants to abortion providers and community organizations so that people can access the care they need regardless of income level. And expanding access to medication abortion and preventing the criminalization of abortion under state law. This includes eliminating barriers to using telemedicine for abortion medication and codifying the right to contraception and other reproductive health care, which has occurred here in California. A final issue that I'm going to just touch on is trans justice. After Trump's inauguration in January 2017, first time around, we witnessed a sustained years-long effort to erase protections for LGBTQ people across the entire federal government. Project 2025 gives the second Trump administration a roadmap on how to go even further, including weaponizing federal law to override state-level protections, mandating discrimination by schools and healthcare providers nationwide, and weaponizing federal law against transgender people across the country. State and local governments must protect transgender people from Trump's attempts to implement sweeping discrimination against them. The Trump administration will likely try to force the cooperation of many local and state agencies and try to require information sharing. However, we're calling on states and localities to take action, including ensuring self-reporting of gender, including for identification documents. The Trump administration may require states to treat and/or report students, employees, or the general public according to their sex assigned at birth. Allowing gender self-reporting without medical documentation requirements will help states fight back. Adopting LGBTQ inclusive school district policies that protect LGBTQ students from discrimination and harassment, and providing funding for gender affirming care and comprehensive coverage under Medicaid. States should create permanent, reliable funding streams for gender affirming care providers, clinics, and patients to ensure people cut off from insurance coverage can still access this critical care. So those are some of what the ACLU is doing. And just with regards to those 4 areas, there's certainly a lot of other rights that are jeopardized, but I think those are some of the, the most critical and the kind of hottest topics, so to speak. So I am happy to, share some resources with everyone. Linda, I will send an email that you can then promulgate to your email list and others about various resources that the ACLU is providing, as well as information about our chapter and how you can get involved here locally on some of these efforts.
Yes, I'll make it a download on the website so that when people go to this page, they'll be able to see that. So thank you. Okay, and since Kenny didn't bring a computer, I'm gonna, after I introduce him, and I forgot your name, and so he'll introduce his colleague. And then you can share the computer back and forth so that you can be spotlit. Since moving to Northern California in 2003, Kenny Jowers has been an organizer and activist in support of democracy. Choosing to work within the structure of the Democratic Party, he was instrumental in creating the first Democratic organization in Mendonoma, which is known as Democrats United for Progress, later renamed Redwood Coast Democrats. Later, he went on to start another Democratic organization in Fort Bragg, the Coast Democratic Club, and he revitalized the Inland Mendocino Democratic Club while serving on the Democratic Central Committee for Mendocino County, where he served as chair of the County Democratic Party from 2016 to 2020 and served as an executive board member of the California State Democratic Party for many years. He's taken the lead on creating a new Democratic coalition in our area called We Are Democracy, a Democratic coalition of Mendonoma. Kenny and his partner, Robert Larson, have held many fundraisers and democracy results at their ranch in Manchester over the last 10 years, and he has owned the physical gym in Wallala for the last 22 years. Yeah, be sure to speak.
Thank you, Linda. Hello, everybody. So, what are we doing here? What I feel like is going to get us through the next 4 years is actually participation in our democracy, whether it is through the political process or the political parties that, hang on a second.
No, don't. Don't do audio on there because it'll echo.
I wasn't looking up there. I wanted to make sure that you could see my face. Anyway.
Yeah.
You good? So what I'm going to encourage you all to do if you want to, fight over the next 4 years for our democracy is get involved in, the political process. We have chosen once again, and I have a member of our new leadership team of what we're calling We Are Democracy, a coalition, a Democratic coalition of Mendonoma, so that there is a structured organization or entity within our community. When I moved here in 2003, there was none. And what I noticed immediately was that we were totally ignored by our elected officials. So we started this group with the idea of becoming visible, and it worked. We became, first on a first name basis with all of our elected officials, whether it's our county-wide or our statewide or even our federal congressman level candidates or representatives. And that's what we need here because we're so isolated. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, and I have some sign-up sheets here, is to get involved with this new organization. I'm going to let Denise Verolini, who is a resident of the Sea Ranch and part of our leadership team, tell you a little bit about what the purpose is of this group. But I want to get a show of hands of those here that are on our leadership team, if you will. Okay. Great. And I would introduce you all, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let Denise do that and then tell a little bit about our We Are Democracy organization.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kenny. First, I want everybody to stand who's on our newly formed leadership team. We've been meeting for about 6 months, so we're really new. So Kenny Jowers to my left, of course. Eileen Buell is on, but she's not here, and the following people are here. So Greg Gilreath, stand up, please. Cyril Barrymore, Sylvia Evans, Zach Hayward, and me.
And you.
And me. So what we are doing is forming a team of people who will sponsor events and sponsor actions to take on the coast, Mendocino and Sonoma counties, so that we don't have to look at ourselves 4 years from now and feel like we got to get our head out of the sand and who are we? I actually think of this as what do we have to gain in the 4 years? What are we going to do better at the end of this administration than we're doing right now? And part of that is learning how to dialogue with each other, especially people that we don't agree with, or even people who we do agree with, but they say it differently than we say it. I think there's a real opportunity for us to learn some skills about how we talk to each other with respect and how we deeply listen to each other. And I think that's been lost over the last several years. So that's probably my passion for sure. I'm a psychologist by background and training, and I'm passionate about how we communicate with one another. And that's part of what we're doing. Let me tell you what else we're doing. So we're promoting active participation of adults and youth. So I want to underscore that, and youth, in the political process in order to improve the quality of life, support liberty and freedom, which I think we all revere, both in our community and our country. We're providing forums for the creating and sharing of ideas and information and listening to different points of view, which I had mentioned earlier. We are here to offer hope and leadership to our community for a better world, and we start that by where we live locally, is our opinion. We're here to actively educate the public concerning the values, the platform, the activities of the California Democratic and the National Democratic parties. We're also here to actively work with for the election of more Democrats to political office and encourage those who may seek that office in the future, including our youth. We're here to assist the current office holders and the candidates to get their message to the public and to hold these elected officials accountable to us, the people. And I think that's what Kenny spoke to about how we weren't on the map before. We're hard to get to, we're small, and we are on the map now. So what do we do with that? And then lastly, to adhere to the Sonoma and Mendocino County Democratic Central Committee's bylaws, including those of our 2 counties here. I want to invite you all to join us. We are a group of people who are open to what are people's passions, what do they want to do with those passions, how do we make this place a better place in 4 years. We cannot, in my opinion, do a lot to handle what's going on internationally, much less nationally, although we do have printed email and actually snail mail and phone numbers of our 2 California senators. There's actually been some studies that have said that when they hear from enough of us, it matters. So I don't know if that's your opinion as well, but that's something that we can do. I think you said it, Paula, when you're sitting at home and you're disgusted, get out a postcard, write a letter, pick up the phone and call them and leave a message. That is something that we can do. But in the steps that we take here in the home that we live in, let's figure out a way to be in a better place with each other after 4 years, kind of irrespective of what goes on in the larger setting. Internationally, it's crazy. Nationally, it's going to get crazier. So local is where it counts. So please join us. We have sign-up sheets for you. We want to be an action-oriented group, not just let's get together and meet, but what are we going to do? How do we do it well? How do we do it even better the next time? So, thank you.
Okay.
So just in being proactive in, the next 4 years, I'm going to encourage you to be participatory. And in that, there's a statewide group called We Are California. And I have some handouts as well that I will give you before you leave if you would like one. And it has listed different groups from state to national organizations, whether it's information, political, or media. So, once again, the idea is to support media companies that support democracy. So we all know who does not support democracy in the social media realm. It's time to get off of those, y'all, because you're supporting companies that support authoritarianism and dictatorships. So it's time for us to disengage from that. There are companies that I'm going to give you here on my sheet that will help you find companies that do support democracy. So I strongly encourage you to join those if you want to be on social media. But also if you want to support good information that is not slanted toward authoritarianism, then here is a short list. You can Google this stuff and get it yourself, but I'm going to make it easy for you by giving you this. The most important thing that I want to leave you with is that we all need to fight like hell for our democracy. And I guarantee you we can win this, because I'm not feeling hopeless, because I'm in a room of people who feel the same way that I do, which gives me a lot of hope. But it's time for us now to get active. We can't sit back any longer and expect somebody else to do the fighting for us, because that's sort of why we are where we are. Okay?
I'm going to thank you, people.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention before I hand this microphone around to let you and enter a conversation is that you can call any elected official anywhere in the country and complain. And if they say you are not a constituent, you're just like, yeah, I am from California. The ATM of campaigns. And we get emails every place in the country. And until you change the laws so that you only can get contributions from your constituents, you are going to have to listen to me and others like me, because I can send contributions to whoever runs against you. So listen to me. Okay. Who would like to add their own thoughts, conversation?
Linda, I had you, Kenny, and I'm sorry, I forgot. Denise
Kenny.
brought the senators. There's handouts in the back of my,
Okay.
that has the state guys, the assembly and the state guys, if you want that.
Okay. Excellent. Who in the audience? Okay.
I guess this goes under the self-help thing. So in 1970, I was in the Air Force in Vietnam, driving a gas truck. And I was at a base that got attacked pretty frequently. And every time we got attacked, I had the same thing in my head. Nixon's trying to get me killed. I took Nixon very personally. 1972, I went to Germany after Vietnam, and my discharge date came up just after the election. And I was absolutely convinced the United States was becoming a fascist state. You have to remember, Nixon did win by a landslide, as opposed to this idiot. So I decided not to go home. And I took my discharge in Germany, ended up hitchhiking around Southern Europe and then mostly Egypt and then the Sudan. And by the grace of God and a alert security guard and 2 reporters, things changed. And we got rid of Nixon. So keep the faith, people. Keep the faith. Oh, by the way, years later, I met George McGovern at a book signing. And I told him about my Vietnam experience. He signed my book, Dear Rick, we both outlasted Nixon.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan Lewis, Anchor Bay. I highly recommend to you to read Brian Tyler Cohen's book, Shameless, if you haven't. One of the things he's noted is that the left wing is not using the same kind of communication that the right wing is. If you look at right wing bumper stickers, they've got it down to 3 words. You know, lock her up, stop the steal, what you got. Democrat bumper stickers seem to say, see next bumper sticker at the bottom. And some of them look like doctoral theses. If we come up with ideas like this, and I do recommend the book, we can communicate clearly and concisely what it is we want to say. A couple of things that have come up lately to me online is Trump's not building a cabinet, it's a junk drawer. And, you know, the fire sale should not be at the White House. Think about these things.
I also wanted to invite people online, if they want to share thoughts, to raise your hand. And then also, if you want a camera to be on, but at least raise your hand first so I can see, and then I can call on you so we can try to not have 2 people speaking at the same time. Okay?
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree with you. It has to be, that's my message with the ERAF. We're getting screwed. And that's what he won with, because he talked to all those poor Rust Belt people and people that were paying too much for their gas and their groceries. They didn't understand he was going to be even worse. He just played on their anger. And sometimes you have to use that, because I'm very worried about fire here. We saw what happened to LA. We need more support here. And we definitely have to do what Kenny and Denise were talking about. Call them, write them. They work for you. You got to remember that.
So with books, I brought 2, and I actually notified Jill Blue at Four Eyed Frogs that I was going to mention these books, and she's ordering them, and they may or may not have arrived yet. So if you're interested, you can at least say, put me on the waiting list for them. One is The Brainwashing of My Dad, which was a documentary film, and that's available to rent or buy for not too much money, and also in a book form. And it talks about the psychology of the right-wing media complex. And her dad used to be a great guy. He was the union steward for his factory, and he was the little league coach. And the factory closed. He lost his job, and his new job was an hour away from home. And he started listening to conservative talk radio on his way to work and way home. And he became brainwashed. He became nasty, rude, racist. And it was like, I don't even recognize him And so it's a really, it's not just her dad, but she interviewed Noam Chomsky and other media experts in it. It's a great book and a great film. And the other one I wanted to highlight was All the Worst Humans by Phil Elwood. And he worked in public relations and worked for wonderful people like Muammar Gaddafi. And it's basically the PR is the defense attorney in the court of public opinion and how they can manipulate the news media to their own side and how we can be manipulated by that if the journalists don't recognize how they are being manipulated because they've got to get a story in by their deadline or whatever. So those were two books that I wanted to highlight. And go ahead, take the to Jen Senko, Senko. And if anyone wants to either come up or want the microphone.
Not like I know how to use this.
Okay.
Oh, hi. Hi, everybody. I just want to say I'm Ann, and thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for showing up. I also wanted to sort of suggest that everybody consider working at the local school, because that's what I've been doing to participate. And there are young people coming up there that need to hear from us. And I substitute teach there, fairly low commitment level, but I get good energy from it, and you would too. We need more subs. They also need some paraprofessionals. So if somebody wants to work half-time, so local school, Horicon, Sonoma County pays good. Just wanted to suggest that too. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Caroline Denise. Hello. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more of your concrete thinking about those conversations. I mean, as you know, I'm a retired English professor, so I'm always ready to talk or lead book groups, to engage different perspectives based on concrete evidence, a text of some kind. But what were you thinking of when you were saying we need to learn to listen to one another more, we need to practice those communication skills? So I'd love to turn it back to you and hear more about that.
Thank you. I'll just talk extemporaneously, which is that if you're one of those people, I think Molly, is it? You're an exception who has a really good friend and you decided not to talk about politics so you could keep the friendship together. But many of us have stories about losing family members, losing friends who have a completely different political view than we do. And I would just tell you I'm as guilty of this as anybody else, but I have my opinions and I think my opinions are right. And anybody else who vehemently disagrees with me, I just go, la, 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 la. And I just don't think it gets us anywhere. I think we are a country, we are a diverse country, and we've got to learn to listen to one another and respect where somebody's coming from and say, tell me more, what got you to think that way? And even in this small community that we're a part of, there's a lot of bifurcation here. And we just kind of stick to our own knitting a lot of the time, whether it's the Sea Ranch and the other side of the river or what it is. And I think there's so much to learn from one another. So part of the reason I'm in this group is because I want to help people learn how to listen even when they don't agree and learn how to be better representatives of their own ideas without having to put somebody else down. We've got a plethora of that happening, and we're going to be listening to that for a while here. So how do we do it differently here? And so part of my passion is helping this group learn to listen and learn to respect differences and learn to not make people the enemy, because we are a victim of a whole thing that went on that made us the enemy, and we're on the other side of it now. So I just think there's a lot to learn here. You want to add, Kenny?
I do, if I can. I'd like to say that part of the objective of this group is to allow access or give access to our local community to people like the group is talking about as our first. By the way, we just formed this like October, November, December. We're still, you know, we're just getting started, because the former Democratic entity here, Redwood Coast Democrats, just went defunct. And I felt like we need it now. We need something now. I couldn't let it disappear. It started in my living room in 2003. So I felt like we need to keep this thing going. But my point is that our first activity that we're going to do is going to have a forum with our newly elected Assemblyman, Chris Rogers, to introduce ourselves to the community, but also to give the community access to him. And that's very, very important, because Chris represents everybody. He doesn't represent just Democrats. So part of what Denise is saying, and part of what the objective of this group is, to give good information to our community, no matter who you are or where you stand on the political spectrum. That's really, really important, and that is absolutely something that we can do. It's part of our mission.
Where will that be?
We're working on it now. We're hoping February. That's our objective right now, February.
Okay, I want to call on people from Zoom. And the first one who had their hand raised was Joni. So can you turn on your microphone?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you muted my video, but I guess nobody can see me anyway. I just want to say hi to everybody.
If
Thank
you want your video on, you can. It's
Okay.
up to you.
You turned it off. There we go. Pleasure to meet you, Linda. I appreciated your email, and hi to Kenny and Sylvia and Kevin, who attended my march today, our march today. I am super happy that we are joining forces in our little tiny community, because, oh yeah, I'm over here. Because I have felt, and I feel like a lot of my friends who didn't participate today told me they have been in such a funk and so depressed and so angry that they can't focus on anything, and they can't, and the feeling of helplessness is not helpful, right? And we all have been there. And hi to Rhonda and Dan. They can't see me, but I feel like the things we can do, and I am super happy to participate in We Are Democracy. I've enjoyed going to I Am Democracy the last 2 years at Kenny and Robert's Ranch. We are a collective force, and we do have power, and we don't, it's hard to remember that. We need to be together and remind ourselves, because otherwise we are lost. So I'm grateful that you're doing this forum. I'm sorry we couldn't be there. We chose our chickens over coming because it would be too hard to get back in time. And Kenny, I'm sure you understand that. Basically, I just want to say, please sign me up for everything that you have going on out there, because I want to be participating as much as I can. When I lived in Santa Rosa previously, I was very active in the community, and I still have a lot of contacts and people there. For those of you who, Lauren, particularly, because I know you're there, sign me up. I want to be part of this, and I feel like we do have power. Sorry, I'm not wearing my pink pussy hat. It's in the car. Anyway, I just want to say thank you all for coming, being here, being present. And I remember the last thing that I wanted to say is, I feel like part of why, and my parents are Trumpers, they watch Fox News. Part of the reason that I've heard anyway, that why Trump has done so well is because he's a liar. And he's like, let's make America great again. And people want to hear that positive message. And I think we have tended to focus less on the worker bees, and a lot of Republicans see the Democrats as intellectual elitists, which of course we are because we're smarter. But the true thing is we have to appeal to everyone. And a lot of people feel left out. I mean, Brian, who's over here, would say and has said, you know, the white males feel like they've been left out of the discussion. We have to find a way to be positive. Thank you, Sylvia. And to reach out to people in a positive way, which is hard when we are feeling so down. So I just want to say today has been we had 38 people come to our People's March, which I didn't expect, you know, maybe 10. So that was great. And thank you to everyone who's here today, who's attending, who's being present, and let's keep up the momentum. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, the next person is Catherine Conrad. So if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to thank Linda. I think the way you have put this forward and the way you have spoken and the way you have tried to bring people together in the face of this incredible situation we now find ourselves in is laudable. So thank you, Linda, and everyone who's attended. I have a very brief first question, which is I have not heard anybody mention the indivisibles. I've connected with them at the first Trump administration with the Livermore Indivisibles. And then I wrote postcards and phone banked and all that. So I'm curious, and maybe it's because they're not up here. There's a Marin Indivisible, there's Livermore, but I was curious about why that wasn't, no one's mentioned that. That's my first question. And my second question is, I'm all for listening to each other, but there's a line in the sand at which I can't cross. My mother's a Trumper, and we have simply said, I mean, she's my mother and she will always be my mother, and I will not forsake her, although she has pushed me incredibly hard. And, but I will not turn my back on her. And other family members I have. And there was a quote from a prominent American citizen who said, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in oppression, denial of my humanity, or my right to exist." And I think that's where this issue gets so difficult, because for people to say, I don't have a right to my own reproductive rights to my body, or another person say that person doesn't have a right to be a girl if she was born a boy, or any number of other rights that the Trumpers say that we don't have, that's when it all gets difficult. And I think the only way around that is you just don't discuss it, but yet how do you fight for it? And that's what I'm up against. But thank you to everyone who has offered ways to get together, and I will join We Are Democracy. Obviously, I guess we don't have an indivisible, so I will join that. I want to bring the sea otters back to the northern coast, so I thought, okay, I can start working on that because that's a laudable thing that we can all get on board. Everybody loves sea otters, right? So, so thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Linda, can I address?
Sure, go ahead.
Catherine, hey, this is Kenny Jowers. You probably can't see me, but that's okay. So on the list that I just passed out to everybody, that's on indivisible is on that list.
Excellent.
Can
So-
you
Oh.
can give that
Yeah,
as a
it-
digital thing to me, and I can add it to our website.
Fantastic.
So people
Yeah.
can see it later.
Yes,
Okay,
it's just options. There's things on there that people can do, and that's why we're here.
so
Excellent.
Thank you for
Thanks.
bringing that up.
So Catherine, yes, the book, The Brainwashing of My Dad, I can lend it to you because she actually got her dad back sane-wise. And it's like the documentary film was great. Part of it was he was hospitalized, and when he was in the hospital, she took the parental control units on his television and blocked Fox News.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I have a similar story, which I won't tell, about my father-in-law. He lost access to Fox, and he changed. Didn't become perfect, but he did become nicer.
Yep.
Also, I
Yes.
wanted to throw out with the books that you mentioned, and I don't
Yes.
remember who's talked about people. Some woman said she'd like to have a book group, or that she's all into, forming book groups. But I thought if we had a book group over some of these books, maybe that would be another way of working through our misunderstanding of these people in our lives, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, just wanted to throw that idea out there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I wanted to give a mantra that I have created for myself. I'm going to switch, and then after this, then I'll call on the next person, which is Ken Weston, which is, I will not collaborate. I will not capitulate. I will resist fascism and fascists. Okay, Ken Weston, if you can, if you want to show your camera, you can. If not, I'm like trying to find you. Okay, and you have to,
There I am.
okay, great. And I will replace Spotlight. Okay, okay, go ahead.
Thanks for the floor. So as a white guy, I can tell you I'm not hanging out on MAGA conversations like this to see how they're doing. I have always been a bit left of center and spent 3 decades or more in social welfare, and I'm well aware of a lot of the things facing our vulnerable populations. I have also seen some of the extremes, especially here in California, probably more than elsewhere in the nation, of the push for leftist stuff, and feel like sometimes we don't really do a good job of picking the right battlefields to die on, and joined this conversation specifically for the purpose of seeing if anybody seems to be getting that, and kind of feel like maybe not. As a center of the road guy, I have leftists, not MAGA people, refer to me as roadkill. Like, if you stay in the middle of the road, you must be suicidal. I would say that we lost a lot of people like me just about 2.5 months ago in a national election. And I'm not hearing anything from this group other than maybe we should listen better, that moves in the direction of thinking about and talking about centrist positions that matter more to the middle, and kind of like respecting our own convictions and beliefs about social justice, while also picking better battlefields to die on in terms of appealing to the general population. That was my hope in getting on to this conversation. I'm not complaining, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that was my hope getting on. I'm not hearing a lot of it. I'm a little disappointed. And I'm wondering if the Democratic Party is my party 10 years from now, or if I'm still waiting for my party to be created. Thank you very much for the floor.
Sure, get the microphone to work for you.
I think these bread and butter issues are really very important. I think the killing of the CEO of United Healthcare, it was amazing the reaction to that. The killing, naturally, we all abhor, but everybody understood the anger, the frustration. I mean, even on the coast here, I think it was a few years ago, there was a man and woman at a campsite where the man killed his wife and shot himself because of healthcare bills that they couldn't pay. And I think there are certain bread and butter issues right in the center that Democrats really need to come in and take charge of. Also looking at income inequality. The middle class has been decimated because we keep on giving tax cuts just to the rich, and that the rich aren't paying their fair share. And so I think a lot of the ways that Democrats can turn the dime on this sort of populism is to go back to a lot of these things that affect everybody's pocketbook in terms of healthcare cost. The for-profit healthcare system doesn't work. A lot of us are thinking of moving to Canada or other places where they have universal healthcare. And I think those sort of issues really resonate with a lot of voters. The other thing I would like to bring up too is somebody mentioned volunteering at schools. I started working or volunteering at Kashaya. I am currently now working there part-time, and I think about a lot of Native people on the coast and elsewhere who have been marginalized. So I want to encourage people to volunteer. I will be putting out a volunteer thing for helping me organize some materials there through EduAc that Mary Vischer has started. So I want to encourage everybody to do that. And then there's two more things I'd like to address. One is just this networking. So I really appreciate that you have this forum. I feel the more I'm connected to other people, the more I feel that I can do more because I'm connected and I'm networked with like-minded individuals. The other was, I do think we need a whole committee just to come up with better slogans. I like seeing that in Canada, they go, Canada is not for sale on their things. And I was like trying to think of what are 3 or 4 word things, maybe democracy is not for sale or justice is not for sale or something along those lines, but we do need more catchy things to combat Fox News and the MAGA people who really are good at 3 or 4 word slogans that really capture an idea. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. Oh, my name's Scott Carson.
Linda, can I address Ken?
Sure, unless you wanted to
Go
speak
ahead, Greg.
first.
Sure. Hi, my name is Greg. I'm also with We Are Democracy. I'll stand up. Unstructured thoughts, but a couple of things to say. I think that we can address the center while also not losing sight of the important cultural issues. I think it's a very wise thing to think that they have us fighting a culture war while we are losing the class war, but that doesn't mean that we need to lose sight of the culture war. I think there's a couple of things that a bunch of people have said here today that are really important. I think everybody needs to make an effort to understand what the attention economy is and how the attention economy actually drives all of society today, and how the battle and why Elon Musk bought Twitter, why Zuckerberg is, why all these, basically the new class of oligarchs are taking over the countries, because they deeply understand that it's not about what's the answer to the question, it's about what's the question itself. And so I think that people really need to think about what are your sources of information, and we're not just fighting over the answer, that we should be building bridges to reframe the question itself. Because if we're fighting over the answer to the question that they pose for us, we all will lose. And so when we talk about building bridges and expanding the conversation, I think what it's really about is how do we find common ground on values that we all share instead of fighting over the answers themselves. A couple of works that I would suggest people consider. There's a very interesting podcast from about 8 years ago called The Rabbit Hole. It is a podcast that tracks how people become radicalized through YouTube and the YouTube algorithm. To that end, I would say people should watch a documentary called The Social Dilemma, which is about how the algorithms within all social media, and actually even more importantly than that, how the algorithm of YouTube works, because most people are radicalized through YouTube. And at this point in time, YouTube is actually by far the biggest source of media in the world. More people watch content on YouTube than any other streaming platform or any other way, television, movies, social media combined. YouTube dominates the cultural conversation, and YouTube defines what we are discussing in this country. And the YouTube algorithm is actively radicalizing people. And so understanding the mechanisms of those, I think, will help everybody sort of free their mind to resist a little bit more. And then the last thing I would recommend people look at is there's a book called How to Do Nothing, and it's all about resisting the attention economy. And it talks about what the attention economy is, which is basically that eyeballs are what drive America right now, and that America mostly works online, and that the power of all these places comes from the amount of users on their platforms, because then they get to define what we are talking about. And I think as soon as we all can understand, innately inside of ourselves, I think Kenny touched on it when he's like, delete Twitter, delete Instagram, whatever you want to say. But I think it's also understanding why those platforms have such immense power over all of us. And I think only by doing that can we all get to a place where we can start to reach out and cut through some of the noise and reach the people who we disagree with or might think otherwise. Yes, Cyril. The book, How to Do Nothing. There's a documentary called The Social Dilemma.
Could you expound on the attention economy and where does that phrase come from?
I don't know where it comes from. Yes.
Oh, hold on, give her the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, let Judith talk.
Hi. Speaking as someone who originally started in a multi-party democracy and is now a fervent American citizen, the thing with the social dilemma, and correct me if I've got the wrong source, is that if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And I personally think that it's important that we stay on social media, that we pay attention, but that we do not feed it. Do not click on the ads. Do not fund it, because we all remember things like MySpace, and I worked for CompuServe back in the day. And so it's really important that one of the powerful things we have is that the barrier to exit out of all of these social media channels is incredibly low. It's not like kind of giving up, you know, a TV cable account, which is really difficult to cancel. So I would say, while I've got the microphone, I would say I personally feel that it would be great if there are parties that come up that take up a different space. I'm not anti being a Democrat. I just think that at the moment we are so stuffed into this polarized position. And my experience of other countries is that when there are multi-parties, people have to collaborate. It doesn't always work, but there is a real opportunity. And talking to a Republican friend of mine in Virginia who has seen her husband totally radicalized and become a Trumper, I think there could be a real opportunity for sort of different parties in the future. Final thought, my favorite book at the moment is called Wintering, and it's by Elizabeth Kay. We're going to have to do a really good balancing act for the next 4 years. Staying involved, staying aware, taking actions where we can, but also providing a space safe in our homes and spaces so that we retain our resilience and strength. So I hope that was useful.
Thank you, Judith. I mean, I would love to see the Republican Party become a party of Republicans and not just MAGA extremists, and that would probably split it apart. But, you know, their history goes back to Lincoln, and these are people who do not believe in evolution. Think about that one. Okay, looks like,
Linda?
yes.
Can I speak from the floor? I'm over here. It's Ann.
Okay, yeah.
Do you need to call somebody on you?
Well, there was someone on Zoom.
I can wait.
So Joni, if you want to unmute so we can hear you.
Linda, I don't want to get too far away from Ken because he did ask a question to this group.
I do want Kenny to ask Ken his question.
We
Please.
do need to
And thank you.
answer Ken at
Yes.
some point.
Please.
Go ahead. Okay.
Kenny?
Someone speak.
Yes.
Kenny, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Should I, Linda?
Yes.
Okay. So Ken, you still there? I'm hoping you are. I'd love to see you and Diana's face again on the screen. Look, the Democratic Party, which, you know, I'm not advocating, I'm not here representing the Democratic Party, but let me say the past is the past. We are now going into a new era, okay? So there are people now running for the chair of the Democratic Party. Y'all need to look that up, okay? Who's running? What do they represent? What do they stand for? What's their ideas for moving us forward for the next 4 years? New chair of the Democratic Party is about to be decided. Okay, so Ken, that's really important for you to know that there is a new chair coming up, new leadership for the Democratic Party. That gives me hope, okay? Even though I liked a lot of what we were advocating for in this election. The other thing is I love the idea of you and Diana both being in our new Democratic entity called We Are Democracy. So I hope to see you at our next event.
My hope was to influence the current thing in this small community. I feel totally disconnected from the national scene. I want to know what this group is doing about centrist thought now, here. That's the message. And I appreciate you, Kenny, very much, but I want to make sure you know that I do not look for my solutions at the national level. I think what happens in this country matters much more about how you and I, or somebody else and me at the coffee shop, or somebody else and me at the grocery store interact with and treat each other matters so much more than all of the other wrong noun came to mind. Stuff that goes on in our country.
Okay.
And so sure, you know, my hope is that if we have something local that actually shows a shift in why we lost a national election, basically over bedrock liberal issues. I mean, it was like Kamala did not represent herself.
Okay.
Ken. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, look, we could go down a lot of rabbit holes here, and that's not why we're here. The purpose of forming a new Democratic or a Democratic association entity, we're calling it a coalition. Why are we calling it a coalition? So that we can get together with other groups of like mind or almost like mind and have more influence, and I'm not going to say power, but more influence. Okay? So the power we have locally is locally. That's all the power we have locally. So my point of addressing this to you, Ken, is specifically because I want you to be a part of it. Okay? I want you to be a part of it. That's what I'm asking you to do, as well as everybody else. It's that simple, because we can't affect things on the national level. I don't have that kind of power. So anyway.
And just to reiterate what I was saying earlier today is if we can't incorporate different people's opinions on where we should be focused and what we should be doing and how we should go about it, we're never going to get anywhere. So part of what I would encourage you to do is come on board and influence us, talk to us, tell us about the centrist position, have good, wholesome dialogue. So that we don't just say, this is where I stood on January 20th, 2025, and in 2030, I'm still in the same darn place. Let's get out there and dialogue respectfully with each other.
Okay, Johnny?
Yes, so this is Brian Flynn, and thank you, Kenny, for addressing Ken Weston. Ken Weston, you and I have a couple of things that we need to get together about because we have similar thoughts of being centrist. I was a long-time Republican, and ultimately, because the Democratic Party, their platform has been relatively consistent over the past several decades, the Republican Party has not. So therefore, I have become a Democrat, so to speak. However, my point is that being a centrist in many ways, like Ken, is there are a lot of Republican candidates and or people that are in office, either on the local, county, state, and certainly federal level, that are much like the Adam Kinsingers and Liz Cheneys, both Republicans, but certainly were not advocates of the Trump administration or their methods, that we should not only concentrate on the Democratic Party, but also those Republicans as well. Because if I'm a Republican representative and I think, ooh, I don't have the MAGA vote, but oh, I have a bunch of support because people have listened from the Democrats, maybe I can push back some and therefore be an advocate for the right thing to do for liberal and or better agendas as we move forward. I think not only should we concentrate on the locally, like you said, Kenny, but also locally Republicans as well. There may be candidates Republican candidates, it could be a better candidate than a Democrat. And I think that's an open mind that we should all have, that somebody could be, no, I know somebody, but if you don't look at it, and if you don't think about it, and you don't research it, and you don't have a conversation with them, then you may not know that that particular candidate can be, really good for what we want to have happen, not only locally and here in the state of California, but also nationally. So that was what I had to say. Thank you for letting me have my voice. I am
Thank you.
democracy.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, this is Anne from the floor again, kind of addressing the idea of centrality and divisiveness. Something that actually gives me hope is that because of the reading I've done from a variety of sources, and I think common sense tells us also that especially online, there is unfettered access to social media. And we know that there are entities that are participating online that pretend to be something that they are not. And something that actually gives me hope is the understanding that sometimes when people are expressing extreme views, their goal is frankly propaganda and divisiveness as a goal and not communication. In other words, person to person, we can probably find common ground. And lately I've been feeling like if I read something that's truly outrageous, I'm going to assume that it is from a nefarious source. Do you understand what I mean? Most people want to communicate and find common ground. If I hear something crazy, especially if it involves, I don't know, name calling, you name it, just kind of the negativity that we've all experienced, I think we have to doubt some of those sources. They might not be real humans that want to communicate with us. They might be forces that want to divide us. We all know that they're out there and active. So let's communicate.
It's like the social media posts about the California wildfires being about smelt. And it's just, it's wrong and it's offensive and it isn't helping people. And it offends me when I see my relatives on Facebook and friends that I went to high school with posting these things that are unhelpful. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak down there? Okay. I wanted to share a positive thing that I had happen to me recently. I, along with many other people, have been rewatching episodes of The West Wing. And then on January 1st, HBO Max unceremoniously withdrew it from their streaming platform. And there was not another Peacock or Netflix that was streaming it. And on a Facebook page for The West Wing, there were all these people like, why is it gone? Why is it gone? And I was one, and my husband another, sending strong worded emails to ATT Time Warner. And on the Facebook page, when someone was asking why did they remove it, and I thought that maybe it was the corporation ATT Time Warner wanting to bend the knee and attempt to curry favor with the expected tyranny to come so that we could not use it therapeutically. And within a couple days, actually, I think it was January 8th, they restored it. So this coming Monday, knowing that the dude that's going to be swearing in to uphold the Constitution is concerned about crowd sizes and concerned about viewership. I am not going to be part of it. I will not watch any news coverage. I will not click on any news coverage. I am instead going to do a marathon of watching The West Wing because I would prefer to watch a honorable fictional president than a dishonorable real one. So that's what I plan on doing. And I've been posting that on different places to see if I can, inspire other people, because I would love it if there was a huge spike in watching The West Wing and it was actually made a news story for that day. So are there any more questions or anything else? Anyone? Go ahead. Get the microphone. It's right behind you. It's for the recording. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Kind of bringing it back, I'm Rhonda Rummery, and I'm on the board of the Four-Eyed Frog. And so I want to let you know that there was a movement in Arkansas that was defeated. I don't know if it was the Arkansas Supreme Court or it was a federal court, but Arkansas legislature wanted to reach book banning into the bookstores, where people could go in and complain to a bookstore person that you can't carry that book anymore. And Jill Blue, who is the general manager of the Four-Eyed Frog, is an advocate for freedom, especially books that need to be read. She can get you your book almost, if not as fast as Amazon can. And she has been known to meet the discount that Amazon can give you. So you would be bringing freedom of literature locally. The other thing is I'm marginally involved with a group that is aware of what the immigration policies of the new, I won't go into what I call him, regime is going to do and how it's affecting our students right now. There are kids on campuses who are using undocumented as a bullying tactic. And so there's a movement involving our schools, our school board. Our school boards have to pledge to support the United States Constitution and the California State Constitution. And part of that is that education is available to every student, documented or undocumented. We don't ask the students what their family status is, but there are people out there who are very afraid right now, talking about maybe having to go back to Mexico, splitting up families. You can be active in this. Action Network is organizing bug out bags. If a kid comes home and ICE has reached the family and the kid has nobody there, Action Network will provide them with a place to be. And it's just beginning to start. I believe the red information you had out there, both in Spanish and English.
Yes.
People have rights. And if you know of anyone who knows somebody else who might be undocumented, we don't ask them if they are, but everybody knows somebody who is. Let them know that they do have rights. They can say no. We're working on organizing to get them somebody to call to pro bono lawyers. So please be aware of this is doing our friends and our local family.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything else? And anyone else want to add to the conversation?
Linda,
Yes.
with regard to the last speaker, how can we help? Do you have ways for us to help?
Contact Action Network. I know our CMS is involved in it. Anybody who's on the school board, our principal at the high school, Mark Fellis. It's, as I said, just beginning to start, but one of the ways is contacting people. At the Catholic Church is also involved in this. So if you know of anybody who's got any kind of contact with those, I would reach out to them.
Thank you.
Name it Action Network. The only name I know is I think it's Christian Diaz. I know it's Christian, and I think the last name is Diaz, and he's involved in the Action Network.
Yeah, it's on the web. You can look up Action Network, and I think it's at a Point Arena. So yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? If not, I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank the speakers for spending their time with us. And I will be sending out an email to the mailing list when the recording is uploaded to YouTube, so you can share it with others that might be dealing with anxiety and depression. And if you aren't already on the mailing list, please sign up back there or do so on the website, which is the searanchforum.weebly.com. Our next meeting is Saturday, February 1st from 3 to 5 p.m. here and also on Zoom. Topic is apex predators among us. And this is a joint effort with the Ecology Subcommittee of the Planning Committee. Experts on mountain lions and bears will be speaking about how we humans can live peaceably in the habitat of apex predators and how best to minimize the chances of these animals interacting with your household. And the last thing is, Saturday, February 1st, 3 to 5, and be sure to spread, that is open to the public because the bears here on Sea Ranch and the mountain lions on Sea Ranch don't, respect boundaries. So it is, open to everyone. We have a tradition with the Sea Ranch Forum is that when we are done with the meeting, we put the chairs away to help the facility and resources group. So thank you very much.